Hey, Margie here. Do you ever struggle with figuring out the best way to get nutrients into your diet that are good for your bones and overall health? Well, if so, you are in the right place because we're going to talk about how we can use our blenders to help us do this. And I'm very excited about our special guest, Dr. Dana Cohen. And Dr. Dana is an internal medicine doctor who has spent her career focusing on integrative medicine. She has helped thousands of patients find relief from a variety of health problems utilizing the principles of integrative and functional medicine. She's the author of two books. Her first book, Quench, has been published in 6 languages, and her latest book is called Fuel Up: Harness the Power of Your Blender and Cheat Your Way to Good Health. And in today's talk, she's going to share some of her favorite tips and ways we can use our blender and, as she says, fuel up to increase all the nutrients that we get on a regular basis. So it's full of lots of great information. Stay tuned. Welcome, Dr. Dana. It's so good to see you. It's been a while. Thanks so much for joining me here today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to see you too.
You know, I love the book, and I love the title of your new book, Fuel Up. I mean, the truth is, what I always think about, so many of us will put the best fuel in our cars and, but then we don't do that for our bodies. And so I think especially, it's December, the year is coming to an end, and everybody's looking, what positive steps can they take in the new year? And what you've talked about in this book is just, I thought, so powerful and just something that everybody can do. And there's things, easy tweaks that we can add to our life that are really going to make a big difference. So I'm so glad to have you share this with everybody. But before we get started, I always love the backstory. Like, what motivated you to write this book? You already had written a great book about hydration and how important that is. So why did you decide to do a book on, Fuel Up?
So this is really like the next step of, hydration is the I always say hydration is the first step to take when treating any kind of chronic disease. You first learn how to hydrate. And the first book was called Quench. And if you read that, it's really about eating your water. It's not necessarily about drinking more and more water. So this, and there's a lot of smoothies, there's a lot of blends in that book. And through that book, my co-author, Colin Sapphire, had found me. He invented the NutriBullet, sold that company, and now has a new blender called the Beast Blender. And part of his Beast Blender is he does have this hydration aspect and this hydration vessel. And so for like a few years, we're trying to figure out, how are we going to work together? What can we do together? And then, and the truth is, he was full of what I call Colonisms. I mean, he really lives, walks the walk, lives the talk. He lives a blending lifestyle. That doesn't mean he blends every single meal, but he is somebody who hates vegetables, grew up hating vegetables, and yet was a marathon runner and realized that, his life, and he was a busy entrepreneur, couldn't sustain that on his nutrition, and figured out by blending, it developed the NutriBullet, and figured out by living this blending lifestyle, he was getting the nutrients he needed in the easiest possible way, really nutrient dense meals, and then could eat what he wanted on top of that. So he has what I call Colonisms. And in my years of talking to him, I was like, God, he's got so much good, sort of in layman's terms, just so many good ideas and wisdom to share with people. And I was like, Colin, why don't we write this book? And he said yes, and my agent said yes, and Hay House said yes, and so here we are. And it's the sort of the next perfect step from Quench. Now it goes more into the foods and lifestyle, and really making those changes in a really, really easy way. Like, Fuel Up, you mentioned the title. The up is really a play on up leveling your nutrition every step of the way. So small changes have huge impact over time, right? We're very cognizant and careful about talking about diets in the book, because what I have learned in my I don't know, 27 years of practicing integrative medicine is that diets don't work. It is extraordinarily rare that somebody stays long term on a diet, and that it keeps them level and healthy. And typically people just sort of go up and down with their weight, which to me is worse than, learning how to eat probably, or they're, and this is the thing. Um, from a medical standpoint, I give people diets. If somebody comes in with a blood sugar of 300, they're gonna go on a low carb diet for a period of time. We got to get that blood sugar under control. We got to get them feeling better, or a low FODMAPs diet if they have autoimmune disease or whatever it may be, an AIP diet. So there are certain low oxalate diet if they have kidney stones. So there are certain people that, from a medical or functional standpoint, I'm going to give them a diet, but it's the long term, and it's the changing over to. It all comes back to a Mediterranean diet, right? It all comes back to eating real food, clean food, whole food, lots of high nutrient dense food, fiber. So we're trying to teach people how to make these small changes and really change the trajectory of their long-term health in the future.
I love this because that's what I see. Overwhelm is our enemy, and it actually, we shut down and we do nothing. So what you provide in the book, I think, is so great. It's really a step by step. You do one thing, you celebrate, which I'm such a, I teach happiness, so I'm such a big believer in that. And then you go to the next step, and all of a sudden you turn around and this was doable, and your health and life have changed so dramatically. So I think this is wonderful. And there's also a lot of psychology in the book, and we can talk about that a little later, that I think is so helpful because, yes, people can read and they can say, yes, I need this, 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 but the actual implementation and how you're going to do it in your day-to-day life is what's going to be the game changer. And I think that's what you did. So kudos to you for really doing a good job on that. And
that was hard for me to dip my toes into the psychology part because that's not my background. But I had such success using this form of psychology, harm reduction psychology, that I had to talk about it. I had to sort of implement it and putting it into this terms. And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that because I think
let's talk about that.
Sure.
Actually.
Okay.
I thought that was so great, the harm reduction, because it's an issue. I mean, just explain it because I think it's so good.
So I'm going to explain it in terms of me, and I believe I tell this story in the book. So I started to work for Dr. Atkins many years ago, and I was a smoker. I smoked cigarettes since the age of probably 14 or 15 years old, and I was a major smoker. I smoked a pack a day. My whole family smoked. It's very much addicted to smoking, and I was probably one of three students in medical school that smoked. And when I went to see this therapist who specialized, he literally wrote the textbook on harm reduction psychotherapy. Historically, it's used for drug addiction. That's where it's really making its way in this world. And so, for example, with drug addiction, one aspect, and there's so much more to it. One aspect of harm reduction is if you're an alcoholic, one aspect of harm reduction is that period, there is no drinking and driving, right? If you're going to drink, you drink at home alone so that you're not harming anybody else. That's a very simple idea. So that's one idea of harm reduction. For me with smoking, this is really fascinating. I went and saw him, and can I cuss? I basically said to him, listen, I am a holistic doctor. I try to teach people health, and I smoke a pack a day, and I feel like a piece of shit with every cigarette that I smoke. My self-esteem was this big. And he said, what are you talking about? He's like, if you lived in France, this would be a non-issue. He's like, it doesn't, what is your most enjoyable cigarette of the day? And I was like, after dinner at night. And he said, great. He said, I want you to go home. I want you to enjoy that cigarette. And he sort of took it off my shoulders. He took the self-esteem part off of my shoulders, like immediately changed something. And honestly, within 2 weeks, I ended up quitting smoking. So the bottom line is that you meet people where they are, right? unconditional love and acceptance. That is the overarching thing, especially with drug addicts and that kind of things. Like there is unconditional love and acceptance of what's happening to you. No judgment, no, and you make small steps. I mean, that really is the biggest thing. This therapist, his name is Andrew Tatarski. I'm still friends with him today. He is doing amazing work, the most loving human being I've ever met in my life, and the way that he accepts people and meets them. Like these people, most of these people have never had that in their lives, and that alone changes the therapy and the way that things go. So you meet people where they are with food, with diet, and then then it goes from there. And you up level in small increments. You do the best you can. You don't judge yourself, most importantly. That's, so that those are the big overarching ideas. And it's, even in my practice, it makes such a difference of when you start to think about that and the non-judgment of people and what they're eating. And these people, they go to doctors, they go to diet doctors, and they're all being judged. You hear it in the doctors. It's hard. It's really hard. For people who are morbidly obese and that kind of thing. And we now know that it's not their fault. It's not because they're doing it to themselves. We know it from just even the GLP-1 alone, those GLP-1 drugs. We know that like you give that drug to somebody and that hormone changes. Like that's evidence enough that it's not their fault, that they have these hormones that are making them, overeat and reach for bad foods. It's a physical thing. So
yeah, and one of the big things is shame, self-blame.
Yeah.
So much shame, and it's I teach happiness, and that's one of the big things that just robs your happiness, and that's such a big thing for people to move on. And I think your way of one step at a time, celebrate, no judgment. I just think that's so powerful. All right, so let's get to the meat of things. So let's talk about one of the big culprits you discuss in the book, and I know it's a big part of your practice, is ultra-processed foods. And you call them UPFs, right?
Yeah, standing for ultra processed foods, UPFs.
Yeah. What's the problem here with them?
So you're gonna people, if you haven't already, everybody's talking about UPFs. Ultra processed foods, meaning they are foods that are manipulated by big pharma, big agriculture to make foods more delicious, more sustainable in their refrigerators, more, they can stay longer, more addictive too. Like there's addictive things that go into them. So, ultra processed foods, and what we're finding out is that they are increasing our risk for chronic disease and morbidity and mortality. So they're lowering our lifespan. I did a little research for you, and there was a big study. They took data from the NHANES, the National Health and what does it stand for? Nutrition Examination Survey. So this is tens of thousands of people that do these surveys all year for their nutrition intake and their diseases. And they did find that people who have who eat higher levels of ultra-processed foods have a higher risk of osteoporosis and lower bone density. So what's interesting, though, just an FYI, is that those people exercise can mitigate some of those risk factors.
It's interesting because all of the things that affect other things, inflammation, blood sugar, all the things that these ultra-processed foods are going to negatively affect, all those risk factors are also, risk factors for osteoporosis. So there's so many reasons why these foods can, really have a negative impact on our bones as well as our overall health. So so you want to just define, like, when people are thinking, okay, well, what exactly is that?
So there is a classification system. It's not perfect, but it's good. It's called the NOVA system. And the bottom line is, if you look at a label and you don't understand the ingredients, it's ultra processed. There are things that are minimally processed. So think about things like olive oil. Olive oil is not, we don't get it from a tree. We don't get it from nature. We have to push those olives to make it olive oil, right? So there's certain things that are minimally processed. And then there's the ultra processed. So there's all these ingredients that are added to it, a list of things that you don't understand. I mean, I'm trying to think. Cereals are a big one. Bread is a big one.
Potato chips, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. Junk food is
Oh,
all sort. Yeah. Gosh, I know. I'm so used to thinking. So anything that you know is gross, that doesn't is a single ingredient is not ultra processed. So chicken, is not ultra processed. Fruits and vegetables are not ultra processed. Whole grains, like not refined grains. Those are rice is not processed. So that's you want to eat. This is a Colonism. My co-author Colin Sapire. You want to eat food as Mother Nature intended, right? So things that are just coming as they are, and you want to try to really enrich your diet by that. And what better way to do that than with a blender, right? You can't. Nobody puts. I use this a lot. Nobody puts cake in a blender unless you're really weird.
yeah. So tell us
That's
how
a
you,
little bit of judgment right there. Sorry,
no,
but
like, all right, so let's talk about that. Like, why have you found, and in your book you go into this in detail, like why have you found that this blender is really magical for changing people's lives and for allowing them to get the nutrients they need?
because for that reason alone, you don't really put processed foods in a blender. You put vegetables, you put fruits, you put spices, you put lemon. It's really hard to put junk food in a blender. So it's just and I think something like 98% of all households have a blender. And so it's just a great tool. Kids can be involved. It's fun. It's easy. And, smoothies have become a thing. I'm not the first to say this. Think about breakfast. Get rid of the cereal and have a smoothie. Like you can really load it with all kinds of nutrition. There was a study that came out not that long ago about eating 30 different plants a week, 30 different plants a week. Increases your longevity, decreases chronic risk, but it also improves your gut microbiome. So all good things. People say 30 plants a week. That's hard. How do I do that? It's 30 different vegetables a week. It's 30 different plants. So you could get 15 of them in one blend. You could do, ginger, lemon, greens, spices, like there's so many things that you can put in a blend, that fiber, that you're starting to pile on the things, and you realize like, oh wow, I got 15 in one blend. So we did a couple where we counted it out.
Now, the other thing is sometimes what I also think is so incredible about smoothies. I'm a big smoothie person as myself, but something that I like so much is that for certain people, you can, like we'll talk about bitters in a minute, but you can hide flavors. So things you wouldn't normally eat, they get disguised in a smoothie, which is so wonderful. So you want to share a little bit about techniques, because you go over that, and I think that's such a wonderful thing, because people, just like, oh, I don't like that, I'm not eating that. But yet, if they disguise it and mix it with certain things, they can certainly put in a smoothie that tastes delicious.
Yeah, I bring her up a lot. Jessica Seinfeld, Jerry Seinfeld's wife, wrote a whole book on hiding vegetables from your kids by putting them in smoothies, like, or popsicles or something. Like it's a great way to hide. That was Colin's story. He hated vegetables. And we do in the book, we start off with more maybe sweet forward or fruit forward blends for people who, don't like the taste of greens, to what we call green slime at the end, where it's just like literally green slime that you're sucking down. So that's one technique. Start fruit forward, so that you like the taste, and then you can hide the greens in there. You can hide all those things in there. But we have our ability for our taste buds to change throughout our entire life is always there. And for people who don't think that they can do it, you absolutely can do it. I like to give the example, although this is very, very outdated, and I'm going to show my age, but, think about when I was young, tab soda or even just diet soda. Like as a kid, you're like, that's disgusting, and this is not very healthy because I actually think diet soda is horrible. But when you make that change as you get older from regular sugar soda to the diet soda, you realize like, wow, regular soda now is way too sweet for me. Like, or even milk. Think about the idea of when we went from whole milk to skim milk. Like there's, but we have the ability to change and to change our taste buds over time. It happens all the time, and you may discover things that you actually really like if you haven't tried them in a while. But I think the idea is to sort of play with it, do it over and over again. Sometimes I tell people I first of all love to play with blends. I feel like a little bit of a chef, and I definitely make concoctions, and sometimes they don't work, but instead of throwing them away, I hold my nose and I suck it down. So,
you're so right. I had an issue with sugar many years ago before I went back to school for health coaching and nutrition. And, I just, at certain times of the day, I would just eat my sugar and I needed it. I felt I had such a sweet tooth. And then I realized I personally went cold turkey on sugar. And this was back in 2010, I guess. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
And, but what happens is, just like you said, your taste buds completely change, and that there's nothing that tastes more delicious than a blueberry or a strawberry. And I don't even want that cake with all the sugar. It's too much. Your taste buds change completely. So that's
the truth is, though, I don't ask people. I think we're gonna all have birthday cake at somebody's birthday once in once in a while, that kind of thing. Like that's about living our lives. Like I don't expect anybody. And Margie, we've been to some of the same conferences and that kind of thing. You go out with even the healthiest people in the world. Like there are, nobody is perfect 100% of the time. It's all going to sort of sneak back in. Sugar is absolutely tricky though. So I do think that if somebody is truly sugar addicted, the best way to do it is to go cold turkey, zero sugar for a bunch of days. And then you will find that you will stop, because that has to do with that whole hormonal. It's a tough one. It really is a tough one. I will tell you an interesting story about me that you just reminded me of. Speaking of changing taste buds, the first time I ever did that 5-day fasting mimicking diet, so I mimicked fasting over 5 days, and I only used to drink my coffee with sweet and low, and cream, and I loved sweet and low. I did it. That was another one I did from. I don't particularly come from a very healthy family, as you can see, but we did sweet and low since I was pretty young. And when I first started drinking coffee, a whole pack of sweet and low for many, many years. And after that 5-day fasting mimicking diet, where you're not allowed anything in your coffee, 1 cup of black coffee a day, which I hated. Now and it changed something in my brain. Now all I drink is black coffee. I have not used sweet and low since, and that was quite a few years ago.
It's so funny now that we're just chatting about tab. I remember when I was pregnant. Oh my gosh, I could not. And that was before I was into health coaching, and I always ate relatively healthy, but not to the extent of after I learned all the inside scoop and all the integrative world. But anyway, so tab or diet soda was just like my body was saying, don't you put this in. Ever since then, I've never had a sip. I was so turned off by it. Now I know it in it, but at the time it was just.
Yeah. We talk about, I use my husband as an example in the book. He was a Diet Coke fiend. He would drink a 2-liter thing of Diet Coke every single day. And the way I got him to stop was I started using some of the, literally Spindrift, because I think the taste is really delicious on Spindrift, which is just flavored seltzer, natural flavors, nothing else in there. And we slowly got him off. And now he rarely has a Diet Coke, is his alcohol drink when we go out to dinner, because he doesn't really drink. So, but I'm really super proud of that fact. But that's a cheat, right? So make a switch of something that you like. I've used that one a lot on my patients to just try to get off some of the diet soda. Yeah, the diet soda is not good for our brains.
Hey, Margie here. I have some great news to share. The 2025 More Natural Approaches to Osteoporosis and Bone Health Summit will be live starting January 13th. I've assembled a team of 70 experts across many different specialties to give you the essential keys to improve your bone strength and quality and reduce your risk of fractures, so you can live your life without all the worries and with more vitality than you ever knew was possible. The 3 previous summits I've hosted on this topic changed lives and gave people a path forward. In this summit, there are exercise and cooking demonstrations, the latest research, and so much more. When you sign up, you will get 2 free gifts and immediate access to 3 talks. The summit is free and truly life-changing. So just go to tinyurl.com/strongbones2025 and get started now. Let's go back to the show. So you also talk about diversity, because so many people, even if they're making smoothies, it's the same ingredients. It's they fit the same thing in every day, and it's just people get in a routine. Why does it matter for our health that we
Yeah.
try to put some diversity and really change it up?
Yeah, so a couple different reasons. That study that I talked about, 30 different plants a week, is one reason. So a diverse diet of different plants, grains, nuts, seeds, that kind of thing. I also think that we develop food sensitivities. When you eat the same thing day in and day out, our body doesn't like it. It likes a diversity of, and plus diversity in colors and diversity, so even nuts, for example, somebody who eats the same nut butter every single day, you want to mix it up. There's different health benefits to cashew butter, almond butter, to, even just nuts. Brazil nuts, we know, are really rich in selenium and, that you're not getting in some of these nuts. So the nutrient density, eating the rainbow, the different colors, you're getting different phytonutrients, the diversity in your gut health, and then the big thing is these food sensitivities. I think that you can develop a sensitivity to something by eating so much of it. But the good news is most of the time, when you stop that food, give it a break, and then you probably can go back to it, and you realize maybe that was causing whatever. You name a symptom, I'm going to be like, yeah, it's possible. Your symptom could be GI stuff. It could be fatigue, joint aches, whatever it may be. Stop that food, and then give it a couple weeks, and then reintroduce it. And then when you reintroduce it, mix it up. Try not to eat the same thing.
So when people are thinking, what are the key things? Because a lot of times you'll see people are like, oh, that smoothie, I'm starving. If you're telling people to have a smoothie for breakfast, they make it more just fruit-based, and they're starving. They're like, that didn't fill me. But not the ones in your book, and not the smoothies, but you have a name for it. You call it, what do you call it? You had something what was the name of it? It was your smoothies plus, or your smoothies. There was some name that you call it, like, for your recipes, the type of smoothie it was called.
I don't remember the title. But basically we try to do full meal smoothies. So a breakfast smoothie is going to have some protein, some fat, and then fiber. And then you play with it depending on, if it fills you up or not. And we always try to do real food in your smoothie. So protein. Protein is a little hard because some people, a great source of protein is typically like cottage cheese or something like that, but some people can't handle dairy, and they may have to use a protein powder. That's a last resort, but that's an example of a healthy, ultra processed. It's not really a food, although it is a medical food. So you want to do all your macros, your fats, your proteins, and your carbs, and then your fruits and your vegetables. And if you're hungry shortly thereafter, maybe you're getting a little bit of reactive hypoglycemia from too much fruit. It's hard. Everybody's an individual, so you have to sort of adjust it to what you need. But yeah, those are the ideas of a breakfast smoothie. And then smoothies don't always necessarily have to be a meal. And you certainly, I think I mentioned this already, you certainly do not want to eat, you don't want to blend every single meal. That is not good. That is not safe. We want to chew. We want to savor our food. And we even have in the book, which I'm super proud about, this was my insistence, is teaching people how to cook a little bit. we've lost the art of cooking. So how to roast a chicken, how to post a fish, just a little section in there on getting back to cooking for ourselves.
Yeah. In terms of, I think one of the big things people miss, is the fiber. A lot of people just aren't getting enough fiber and they really don't know how. So the smoothie is a great way. Is there any little tricks or things
Yeah.
that you really want to put in, any certain seeds, or what do you suggest
Yeah.
to up your
Yeah.
fiber?
So, by the way, hemp seeds are a great source of protein too. So that and fiber. So that's that could be a good thing. Flax, chia seeds. You could do a mixture of seeds, pumpkin seeds too. Pumpkin seeds is a good source of protein as well. So yeah, fiber. That's the other thing. And greens. You want it, and that's why blending, in my opinion, is far superior than juicing, right? When you juice, you take away the fiber. You want to blend everything with a liquid. So whether it be water or a nut milk or whatever liquid you want to put in there, is so also that's super hydrating, right? So now you're getting all the fiber, you're getting all the minerals in your hydration. And this is not scientific, but I really believe that a smoothie is probably 3 times more hydrating than the same amount of water because you're holding on to that hydration better from a cellular standpoint.
Oh, I love that. Well, why don't we, since we just talked, I know we have a whole podcast a while ago when you published that book on hydration, but just share because this is an issue. I see this every day. Yeah, I know I have to drink more, but people do not realize how absolutely essential being hydrated and getting enough, water or hydration other ways like you teach is. You want to
Yeah.
just share a little bit
Yeah.
because the New Year's coming and isn't this is probably your number one step that you tell people to get hydrated.
It is the only thing I'm a bit of a stickler on, like staying on top of your hydration, is day in and day out, hour by hour, actually, is the most important thing. There are studies that showing people, who have low grade dehydration also have more chronic disease, specifically things like diabetes and Alzheimer's that puts them at risk. The things that we know about are fatigue and headaches and constipation. It's even bigger than that. And I'm talking about low grade dehydration, day in and day out, every single day. And we all do that. Let me just say the first thing, that the best way to know if you're hydrated enough is to look at your urine output. So we're meant to pee every 2 or 3 hours while we're awake, right? If you're not getting up from your desk and peeing every 2 or 3 hours, you're not hydrating enough. If you're thirsty, you're already too far gone because that is an absolute overt sign of dehydration. And what better way to do it than eating your water? So more vegetables, more fruits, hydrating foods, getting rid of ultra processed foods. So this is like now the manual of how to live that hydrating lifestyle from Quench, from the first book, right? This is the logical next step to that book. And yeah, drinking water. So a few quick tips. Start your day with a big glass of water. You could squeeze a little lemon in there. You could throw a pinch of salt in there for extra minerals, real salt, good salt, or plain water. You want to just start your day with a big glass of water so you don't think about it. Great habit to get into. Keep it at your bedside. You've just spent the night sleeping. You're a little dehydrated because your body has been detoxifying overnight, concentrating all that urine, and you want to replenish that hydration that you've lost overnight. Another little easy tip, drink a green smoothie a day. This is all from Quench. And then a glass of water before every meal is just a good habit to get into that you don't have to think about it. And by the way, I have had people that drink a few glasses of water a day and that's all they need because they eat a super healthy diet that's loaded with hydrating fruits and vegetables and lots of fiber and minimal ultra processed foods, and they move and they, and they only need a few glasses. That not people don't need to be drinking gallons of water a day, and in fact, it can be dangerous. You can overhydrate. It's rare, but it can happen. Although I will tell you what's not rare. I see on a weekly basis that people have electrolyte imbalances because they drink so much water. I'm drinking so much water every day, but I can't quench my thirst because they're not replenishing their minerals that they've lost or their electrolytes that they've lost.
And how would they know that? What are the big signs if someone is drinking too much?
Almost the same as dehydration, leg cramps, fatigue. You know, those are the real big ones. There was recently a story. I think it was not that long ago. Brooke Shields was getting ready for an off-Broadway show, and she was singing in her show, and so she was drinking all this water. She had a seizure because her electrolytes were so imbalanced. So it's not as rare. It's pretty rare. Something like that is pretty rare. She was probably just overdoing it. She's getting ready for a show, nervous, drinking, trying to keep everything moisture. But every week I see somebody with a low sodium and a low chloride because they're drinking. And I ask them, how much water are you drinking? I drink water all day long, but I can't quench my thirst because they're not doing it right. They're not holding on to that water. They're just peeing out those. They're actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Dissolving their electrolytes. They're peeing them out. They're getting rid of their electrolytes without replenishing them.
Do you recommend people take electrolytes then, or minerals?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a bad idea. It's certainly not going to hurt people. I don't think definitely do not take it with every single glass of water that you drink. But especially if you're like an endurance athlete or a sweater, you sweat a lot, then for sure. But I have people who, like I said, those people that said I can't quench my thirst, do one electrolyte drink a day, and like everything changes. Like,
oh, interesting.
They finally quench their thirst.
Yeah. So very interesting. I mean, this is all so important. And what I find interesting is that you, as a practicing physician, have seen it make such a difference. Do you want to just share what you see when people start taking these little steps? These aren't, wake up and take a glass of water is not such a hard thing to do. And the steps that you talk about in the book really aren't that difficult. What have you seen in terms of your practice?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen literally people who I think about joint aches and pains, or like even fibromyalgia. You add you just add a green smoothie a day to people who are not feeling good at all. One green smoothie a day. If they can't do anything else, they drink that one green smoothie and their life changes. Energy, their energy gets so much better. They're moving more fluidity with more fluidity. Fluidly is the word I was looking for. Yeah, I mean, I think I see it all the time. I mean, nutrition, as you know better than anybody, nutrition and diet is the fastest way to better health than any medication I know of. And it's that important. And I always get nervous when I'm talking to people in this field, because I feel like, oh God, here I am recommending smoothies. I'm going to get eye rolls and oh yeah, we've known about this for a long time. And the truth is, we all need to hear it. We need to be reminded of it, and we all need to hear it. And so making these small little changes can have a huge effect, and especially in the sicker people and those, I think. I love to tell people that this book may or may not be for you. You may know everything in this book. I guarantee you have a family member or somebody who could really use this book. My dream is to get this in the hands of people who've never picked up a health book before. I think it can make a huge impact.
Yeah,
on those people.
I just wanted what I like also is you break down why people are not able to do this. All the excuses people will say, well, I can't do that. I don't have time in the morning. I don't have this. And you go through what to do with that. But you say something that I think is really important, the why behind it.
Mm.
And I think I love that because, you talk about Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning. You want to just share? Because I think that I love his book, and I think that's such an important way to live life. But you said something really great in the book. You want to share that information?
Yeah, I think that is huge. Looking for your why, and why do you want to get healthier or feel better? I think that's important to sort of put it into those perspectives. We're sort of, I'm a practitioner. I've been doing this for a long time. People have to. There are people that I won't even take in my practice if they're not ready to make some changes. You have to. You have to sort of sit down and figure out what does that mean for you? What is it going to do? I mean, I'm trying to find all kinds of things to create lasting change in people. So your why could be, so Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is, if anybody has never read it, it's an unbelievable book, and it's talking about Holocaust survivors and how did they survive in concentration camps. And he interviewed a lot of them, and figuring out those who did really well were the ones who had a reason, in their minds of why they could endure this. And it doesn't have to be, it could be, the most common one I hear is my grandkids. I want to see my grandkids get married, or even my children get married, so find your why. And if you don't have, and there's something for everybody. It could be for yourself. I want to travel the world. I want to be able to go to Paris and walk. We just came back from Paris and walk 5 miles a day, and see everything. So I think just the idea of putting that into somebody's head and igniting that spark is. I've done my job if I can do that for somebody.
Absolutely. And what a great way to start the new year, with just visualizing, because I believe, when you visualize something, that's puts you further on the path. So just whatever is your why, it just makes it so much easier to do these easy to do steps. That's why these are simple tweaks. These aren't hard. That's I think that's what's so great when people think of all the things they have to do, because there's, bone health is not easy, and there's many different facets to it. But this is something, no matter what anyone else is doing on their journey, that they can put into their life, and it will have a very positive impact. So I'm grateful for you, because look, it's not easy to write a book, and you've done 2 of them that can really, you've seen how it's helped your patients, and it can really make a difference for people. So thank you so much. And tell people how they can I'll have the book, and I'll have the link and all of that. I'll have both your books, actually, because the other book's great too, The Quench, in these show notes. But tell people how they can get a hold of you, and just,
I think the best is my website, drdanacohen.com, drdanacohen.com. I think everything's on there. You can follow me on my social media channels. I'm trying to do more of. I'm the worst, but I'm really trying to do more videos and get some more information out for people. So stay tuned for that.
And where are you seeing people currently?
Yeah. My office is in New York. I am seeing people. Dr. Dana Cohen. You can call for information. I have Chanel is my. She takes care of all those phone calls and really can explain to people how I work, and it's a bit of it takes a few minutes to understand. So.
Oh, no, that's great. And also, you have a powder. You want to just share about your powder?
I would love to. Yeah. So I developed a line of products that go along with the book. So, we talked about powdered protein powders. I have a powdered probiotic, powdered magnesium, like any powdered collagen, anything that can go into a blender or a shaker for ease. And they are of the best quality. And there's lots of things. I even have a powdered greens and reds and purples, so it's and it's all fully organic. We didn't talk about oxalates. I touched upon it. So you got to be a little careful with some of those powdered greens, especially if you have an oxalate problem. But for kids, or so people who don't eat any vegetables, that's a cheat. That's a good cheat way to get some extra greens and phytonutrients in your diet. But I'm super proud of that line, and it's really good quality.
Yeah, the other thing, just before we end, about the oxalates. So the other thing I like is that you have a lot of different smoothie recipes, but some of them are made with spinach. So people that do have oxalate problems can substitute. That's the nice thing when you're looking at smoothies. You just use them as a guide. So you can substitute kale for the spinach, or you can if you know that. I always use the app Chronometer to see how high oxalate foods are, and then you can always substitute if you need to. But that's the beautiful thing. There's so many options that you can just, make the changes. Well, any last minute things? This has been so interesting, and the book was really fun. Also, I think, and it
Yeah.
will. Yeah, there's just a lot of great information in it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We tried to do a lot of storytelling and tell some stories. Like that's how I talk, and that's how I actually like to learn too. So I really appreciate you, Margie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, thanks for being here. Always good to see you.
Great to see you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Dana as much as I did, and now have some new ideas and ways that you can increase your nutrients with smoothies. And as Dr. Dana says, you can fuel up. All the links that she talked about will be in the show notes. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.